I'll just say first of all that as a lawyer, I'm actually delighted in the last few years this convergence of technology and infrastructure, but not for the reasons you think. As a lawyer, I suffer, as all lawyers do, from this stereotypical perception that will make a very dull dinner party guest. I learned a long time ago not to talk too much about legal issues if I wanted to get invited pretty much anywhere. But I've found recently that the one exception to this is talking about autonomous vehicles or talking about the use of personal data, in which case suddenly everybody's got something to say about it. So from a purely selfish point of view for my social life, I'm delighted. But more seriously, I've been thinking a lot about what does all of this change mean for people like most of us, I suspect, who make our living in the transport and the infrastructure sector. How should all of this change be impacting on the way we prioritise things, on the investment decisions that we make? How's it going to play out in our pipeline of work? Because the one thing that's really clear is that changes here. You've heard Nick, you've heard Rick. All of these things are going to have a massive impact on all aspects of transport. And in the words of Peter Drucker, whose quote I've borrowed here for anybody who's a Peter Drucker fan, the only thing we know for sure is that we're going to all need to do things differently. And some of you out here may already be experts, particularly those in the really at the cutting edge of this, particularly those in the manufacturing and technology industries. But as I say, it's all about change. How are we going to do things differently? So what am I actually seeing already? And I think it's fair to say that I am seeing, coming from my kind of procurement world, trends in bidding. I understand we've been speaking a lot today about the consumer experience. I think it's more than just hearing a lot about this. I'm actually seeing this play out already in evaluation methodologies that have been used on project bids. And more to the point, it's actually been reflected in the hard KPIs and contract obligations that providers in the sector are going to have to perform to. So in other words, this is more than just a talking shop. We really need to get to grips with what does this consumer experience mean and learn to understand it as we would with any kind of performance requirement. Maybe some of them is maybe a little bit more vague than what we might be used to thinking about. We're hearing a lot about technology and data. This is what the whole thrust of this session is about. We hear about connected infrastructure. I love Nick's phrase, data as infrastructure. You know, technology is becoming important not just to drive efficiencies and reduce the costs over the whole life cycle of assets, but also it's becoming really important in terms of how we improve that very important consumer experience. And also, actually, it's becoming essential just to respond and react to all of the progressive technology that's happening with cars, with trains, with smartphones. So there's a lot to keep a hold of, but we need to constantly keep our ears open and be aware of it. And I think just really mirroring what both Nick and Rick have said, I'm seeing a real renewed interest and understanding of the fact that maybe collaborative delivery models and procurement models are going to drive better project outcomes. And I think I see this in two respects. Yeah, firstly, I think slowly an understanding that to deliver a really modern project, maybe the risk-sharing models that we're using need a little bit of a rethink. But also, I think more at the coalface. Increasingly, we are going to need to collaborate in order to deliver a full project solution. And I think that's really interesting, but we're all subject matter experts in our own areas, but when something's really new, none of us are really experts, and it's how do we learn from each other, which is just what the point that was being made by my fellow speakers as well. And there's a lot going on here in the background, some of it legal, not all of it so. I mean, we're not going to get into great detail today on the general data protection regulations, which will be coming into force in 2018, but what we're seeing across our client base is the penny sort of dropping that this is major. This is not about having a policy in the drawer. This is about completely rethinking the way you handle personal data as a business. It's fair to say some people are further along that journey than others at the moment, but I think in a couple of years everybody will have learned pretty quickly. And this is all happening in the backdrop of industries which are already highly regulated. The automotive industry, the rail industry, the telecoms industry, even infrastructure itself. And the regulations around all of these areas are going to really need to play catch up pretty quickly to deal with a lot of this change, because they're just not going to be fit for the purpose. But we all need to make a buck, yeah? I don't see competitive pricing pressures and inflexible contract models going anywhere, at least not at this stage. So it's all well and good saying that we need to innovate, but how are we going to get paid for it? Or do we really just need to accept that innovation is the cost of being in business these days? And of course, how could we forget some of the elephants in the room? Brexit. What will the impact of Brexit be on our ability to get in the right people? What will it be on our ability to get in the right kit at the right price? Cybersecurity. Is your organisation cyber ready? Is any organisation cyber ready? I know this is something that we're looking massively at as a business right now, and it's quite daunting stuff, really. I think if I was to stand here and tell you that I knew where this was all going, it would be foolhardy of me. I think at best it's an educated guess, at worst speculation. I will put my money where my mouth is and make a few predictions of where I think things are going. I believe that R&D is going to become an essential priority for businesses that perhaps historically haven't considered it such a need, and I would actually put our own legal services business squarely in that camp, certainly something we're waking up to. And it's also going to, that alone is going to result in the need for new kinds of people that we previously haven't required. We're now hiring computer scientists, go figure, law firm hiring computer scientists. A really interesting thing that I think we'll see, and I think I'm seeing the start of this already, is as markets that previously operated very separately start to collide, to collaborate, to compete, I think you're going to see real market disruption. I'm already seeing a lot of acquisition activity, bring it in-house. I'm starting to see some of the really clever players partner up, ask us for introductions, actually, technology and infrastructure companies asking for introductions so they can really work and do business together. And that is, I think over the next few years, we're really going to see some serious shaking up as people see this industry as maybe something interesting which they didn't previously see as a real opportunity. And procurement is going to have to pay catch-up, because if the private sector is really seriously going to invest in this exciting stuff and find long-term solutions, there needs to be an ability to make money off that. There needs to be a contractual impetus to do that. And I think that the procuring authorities are going to have to really grapple with this part and ask themselves some quite difficult questions about what the best model is in order to deliver it. But it's not all bad news. The message I'd leave you with, and we're going to have an active discussion so you can ask, more questions can be asked. If your organisation is not prioritising data protection, if they're not prioritising cybersecurity, if they're not prioritising innovation around their core clients and core customers' needs, I'd ask you, why not? Because as you can see even from my fellow speakers, some employers, some contractors certainly are. And I think this is a matter of really sustainability and survival in an uncertain future.